Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming everyone. Sawadee Kap, welcome. Nice to see you guys here at the temple, and welcome to everyone online as well. Today is what we refer to as our Pali Canon and English study group, and I'll explain what that is after we do our meditation, because we usually start with meditation. I'm going to guide you guys in a breathing mindfulness meditation practice, which is what the Buddha used in order to move his mind to enlightenment. There's other things you would need besides meditation, but meditation is an important component of your practice to be able to train the mind and move it to this enlightened mental state where the mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind by the time you train the mind. So I'll guide you in meditation, and then from there we'll move into our class today. If you'd like to join, I start with a chant. This chant helps to ease the mind into meditation, and you can see these chants on a sheet over there on the table. I have the laminated sheets. You're welcome to help yourself to get one if you'd like. It has the chants and the English version on there as well. Yeah, you guys are welcome to help yourself anytime you like. These chants during the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. That these chants, it's not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not any kind of prayer or anything like that. There's nothing mystical or magical going on when you're chanting. Instead, he used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, because he would teach orally, and then his students would need to remember those teachings. So once every 2 weeks, they would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word for word. This is the origins of chanting. If you read these chants, if you end up getting a sheet, you'll see the English translations. There's a lot of respect and gratitude and admiration for the Buddha there. I suspect that the Buddha didn't actually create these chants himself, because by the time someone's gotten to enlightenment, they no longer have arrogance or pride or boastfulness or ego. They don't go around teaching people to chant things like this to them. So these chants most likely weren't even created by the Buddha. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move your mind from this anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to this peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, you'd have a lot of respect and appreciation and gratitude for that person too. So I suspect the Buddha didn't actually even create these chants, because a Buddha wouldn't go around saying, here, chant these things to me in order to respect me and show me admiration. But his students most likely created them either during his life or after his death. So we use these chants as a way to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. Once we're in the meditation, you're going to hear me providing you guidance, and that's just going to help you in your meditation. But then we'll get to a period of time where it'll just be quiet, and we'll just all be meditating together. Everybody here at the temple and everyone online will just be meditating at the same time, and then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. I'm sure that you'll hear an occasional sound, maybe like a car going by or a bird chirping or maybe the dogs outside barking. All these sounds are impermanent. You're not going to ever be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. So whenever you hear those sounds, you can just understand that this is all impermanent, where things are constantly changing. You're not going to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. It's just not possible. So after the meditation, then I'll move into explaining to you what the Pali Canon and English study group is. For those of you guys that are maybe interested in some guidance on meditation positions, there's 4 positions that the body can be in for meditation. They're seated, lying, standing, and walking. Oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, but there's these other positions too, because you might need them at different times in your practice. Just to give you some guidance on seated, because most people are learning in the seated position, is if you're on the floor, you might just be sitting with a cushion or more under your rear and having your legs lightly crossed. By having your legs lightly crossed, this won't impede the circulation in your legs, where if they were real tight, it could impede the circulation, and now you're going to have pain in the lower body, which you're not interested in. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. And it's not about everyone doing it the same way, so you can sit however you're comfortable. You might decide to put your right hand over your left and your thumbs together and put this into your lap. This is what the Buddha did during his meditation, but there's other options here as well, because again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees or their palms up. Some people might just rest their hands comfortably in their lap. And if you're in a chair or maybe on a bench or sofa or in a wheelchair or something like this, you can just sit with your feet maybe flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles. You can really sit however you like with your lower body, and then your hands and arms, same thing, just put them wherever you like. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if your body was real rigid, your mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, and it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to start with chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in with, and then I'll come back in with some guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakava Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Namang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Namasati Satatava Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธภะคะวาพุทธังมหาคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาคะวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone here. Nice to see all of you guys. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. Welcome to our class today. As I mentioned, this is the Pali Canon and English study group where each Saturday I come together with students and help them to understand the words of the Buddha, helping to study to be able to train the mind to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. This is usually a program that students move into after they've already learned in some of our other foundational courses and retreats. But if this is your first time here, it's okay. You'll still learn plenty today. What we actually do is we have chapters from a book series that we read. A student volunteers either here at the temple or online through Zoom. You can volunteer to read the chapter, and it's a very short chapter. Like, for example, this particular first one here is just these couple of lines here. An individual will typically read this, then I'll share some teachings on that, and then I'll open up to any and all questions that you guys have. Getting to enlightenment involves meditation, where you need to meditate, but you also need to be able to learn the teachings of the Buddha, because what he's doing is he's sharing with you the natural laws of existence. He's helping you to understand the way the world functions so that now you can navigate the world with more wisdom. Because when you lack wisdom, you're going to make unwise decisions, and those decisions are going to produce unwholesome results. But when you're making wise decisions, you'll experience wholesome results, or we refer to this as Gama, or some people refer to it as karma. This is not anything mystical or magical. It's not punishments and rewards. It's not anything like that. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. There's no being who's overseeing this. It's literally when you make a decision, there's going to be a certain result. And when you make wise decisions, it's going to produce wholesome results. And when you make unwise decisions, it's going to produce unwholesome results. So the more you awaken to these natural laws, the more you can navigate the world. And you can navigate the world peacefully peacefully and have harmonious relationships. But when you don't understand the way the world is, you'll struggle and have difficulties in the world. So the Buddha's teachings, they're not about a bunch of beliefs that you believe a bunch of things and then you hope something good happens when you die. That's not what his teachings are. He's not giving you rules or commandments. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And when you understand the way the world is and you understand these natural laws, that you learn them, you examine them, you investigate them, you reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false, then you practice these teachings, you're actually training the mind and you're uprooting certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered. There are certain pollutions that he discovered in the mind that need to be uprooted and eliminated. And he's giving you the tools and the techniques of how to be able to do that. So that's what you're doing when you're learning on the path to enlightenment, is you're training your mind, you're awakening to wisdom, you're navigating the world through these natural laws. And now slowly but surely, as you eliminate this pollution out of your mind, you'll be able to see more and more peace and joy coming into the mind, because now you're eradicating these pollutions out of the mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up for you guys to volunteer to read a particular chapter. Whether you're here at the temple or you're online, you're welcome to read these chapters. And then as you do, afterwards, I'll share some teachings on that, and then I'll open up to any questions that you guys have. Today, we're starting a new book, which is this one here. This is volume 3 of the book series. It's titled Foundation in the Teachings. This is a real spectrum of teachings of the Buddha over the course of his life. These are extracts from his original teachings. His original teachings are in 45 large volumes of books. They're about this thick. It's referred to as the Pali Canon. In this book series that I have, we've extracted out of those 45 books some important discourses that the Buddha shared that's going to help you to be able to move the mind to enlightenment. In learning and practicing these teachings, you'll gradually be able to train the mind and be able to get to enlightenment. As I mentioned, a brand new student doesn't typically start here. They usually start in one of our foundational classes or courses or retreats. And if you'd like to join one of those, we have them throughout the month. Even tomorrow, there's the group learning program, which each Sunday and Wednesday we meet together here at the temple and also online. That's an ideal program for students to start off in. And then there's a Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment, which is the first full week of every month. We have Harmony in Relationships course and other things like this. But oftentimes students come here, and this might be their first time coming to the temple, and you'll still learn plenty by learning in this particular class. But just understand this is taught more like a study group versus a traditional style of learning where a teacher might just be teaching and teaching and teaching, and then I open up for questions after 15, 20, or 30 minutes, and then I teach a little bit more, and then I open up to questions, where this is more of a study group. So is there someone who would like to volunteer for this particular chapter? I see Chris online has his hand up, and I think Claire, you have yours up as well. Let's have Chris read, and then you can read the next one, Claire. Go ahead, Chris.
One who points out treasure. Ananda, I shall not treat you as the potter treats the raw damp clay, repeatedly restraining you. I shall speak to you, Ananda, repeatedly guiding you of what to avoid. I shall speak to you, Ananda. The truly dedicated will stand the test. Regard him as one who points out treasure, the wise one who, seeing your faults, guides you of what to avoid. Stay with this sort of teacher. For the one who stays with a teacher of this sort, things get better, not worse.
Okay, thank you, sir. So here, the Buddha is teaching a student named Ananda. This is one of his closest students. Ananda was probably his brother-in-law or his cousin. We're not exactly sure, but he was a member of the royal family, because the Buddha, prior to becoming enlightened, he was a member of a royal family, and he stepped away from that. And then members of the royal family, his son, his wife, other people like Ananda, came out of the royal family and joined the Buddha as a student. So Ananda was with the Buddha from the very beginning of his teaching career all the way to the end. The Buddha taught from the age of 35 to 80, and Ananda was with him wisdom during that period of time for 45 years, essentially. And Ananda is one of the people who remembered the teachings the closest, so that by the time the Buddha died, he actually was one of the people who recited the teachings word for word, and they documented the teachings based on Ananda's recollection of the teachings. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll never forget those teachings that it took for you to get to enlightenment. So Ananda and 499 other enlightened beings came together after the death of the Buddha and started documenting the teachings. So many of the discourses you will see reference Ananda because he's the one that's credited for remembering the teachings the closest. So if it wasn't for him, we may not have actually ever known the teachings because he recounted them so clearly and so accurately. So a lot of these discourses have Ananda as being in the discourse. So here the Buddha is talking to Ananda and saying, I shall not treat you as the potter treats raw, damp clay, repeatedly restraining you, right? This is what a potter is going to do with raw, damp clay. They're going to constantly be having to mold it. And the Buddha is saying, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to speak to you. I'm going to teach you. I'm not going to repeatedly restrain you. I'm going to guide you. I'm going to help you understand what to avoid. I shall speak to you, right? He's going to teach him. He's going to guide him. But it's up to the student to be able to restrain their own mind. It's not up to the teacher to step in and tell the student what they should or shouldn't be doing in any one given situation. Instead, the role of a teacher is to help you understand the wisdom of these natural laws. And then you as a student, you're on your own independent journey to learn and grow and develop. A teacher is kind of like a tour guide pointing out to you the things that you need to learn. And then as you cultivate this wisdom, it's you that chooses to restrain your mind in any given situation. So that's what the Buddha is explaining here. And he's saying the truly dedicated will stand the test. The test is that you've got these pollutions in the mind, and now your mind going out into the world, you're going to be tempted by so many different things. Your mind's going to be pulling in so many opposite directions. So if you're really dedicated, if you're diligent, if you're determined on the path to enlightenment, you'll be able to gradually make your way to enlightenment. Your enlightenment isn't going to be determined based on what you do today necessarily. It's going to be determined that over a consistent long-term period, can you be meditating? Can you be gradually learning? Can you gradually build up relationships with your teacher and your members of the community? Can you gradually be reading and coming to classes consistently over a long-term period? And slowly but surely, the mind will gradually be trained to eliminate these pollutions and gradually experience more and more peace and joy, which is the enlightened mental state. That's what it means by the truly dedicated will stand the test, because can you really put together 3, 5, 6, 8, 10 years of meditation where you're consistently meditating over this long-term period? That's what's going to determine whether you get to enlightenment or not. So if you miss meditation on a day here or there, it's understandable. You would like to meditate 2 or 3 times a day, building up to this, where you're meditating 30 minutes or more per session. But of course, you need to build up to that. And sometimes students take 6 months, a year, or even 2 years to do that. So if you miss meditation here or there, it's understandable. That's not going to hold you back from getting to enlightenment. But over the course of the next 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, can you consistently meditate over this period of time? And that's what's going to determine whether you're dedicated and you can stand this test. The Buddha here is saying a teacher, who points out treasure, regard him as one who points out treasure, right? Sometimes when a teacher is guiding a student, the student's ego can be in there, the student's craving can be in there, and they're reluctant to receive guidance from a teacher. But what a teacher is doing is they're pointing out treasure. It's like, hey, there's a diamond over there, there's a ruby over there, there's a sapphire over there. And the way the teacher is going to help you to see that is, hey, this is your ego over here. Hey, this is your craving for something over here. Hey, you're using wrong speech right here. You can improve that. That's the role of a teacher. And a teacher would wisely be able to do that in a way that's loving and kind and helpful. But oftentimes the student's mind isn't receptive of that. And if that's the case, then they're not going to be able to learn. So the Buddha is saying, hey, regard this teacher as one who points out treasure. Because a teacher doesn't want anything from you. They don't expect anything from you. A person who's teaching in the way that the Buddha taught, we don't ask for anything from you. We don't want your money. We don't want anything from you. We don't expect anything from you. We're just here to share the teachings to help you. So if you've got somebody in your corner who has no motivation other than to help you improve your life and get closer and closer to enlightenment, the Buddha is saying, this is a person who's a wise one that's seeing your faults and guiding you of what to avoid. And stay with this sort of teacher, because this sort of teacher doesn't want anything from you or expect anything from you. They're only interested in helping you. And then he says, for one who stays with this sort of teacher, things get better, not worse. Right? Because you have somebody in your corner that's helping you, that doesn't want anything from you or doesn't expect anything from you. They're just there to help you and point out treasure, point out areas for you to improve your life. So this is what the Buddha is sharing here in this particular chapter. So is there any questions that you guys have here at the temple or either online? If you have questions here at the temple, if you could use the microphones, that way the people online will be able to hear you. We'll be able to hear you here at the temple as well. We have microphones in the white bowl here in front of the camera. All you need to do is press the gray button, wait a second or two, and the lights will come on, and then you just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here, and they'll be able to hear you online. Whereas if you talk without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And for those of you guys online, if you'd like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or in Zoom, you can raise your hand and ask any questions by unmuting your microphone. We'll be able to hear you here, and they'll be able to hear you on the live stream. So it looks like, Claire, you have a question?
Yeah. Could you clarify, Ananda, I shall not treat you as the potter treats the clay.
Mm-hmm. So with
Sorry. Repeatedly restraining you, I shall speak to you. Is it, I shall not treat you by repeatedly restraining you? I shall repeatedly restrain you. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, it's the first one, because the potter is restraining the clay. They're constantly restraining it.
Yes.
And the Buddha is saying, I will not repeatedly restrain you. So he's saying, I will not treat you like as a potter treats the raw damp clay, because the raw damp clay, you're constantly trying to shape it and mold it and get it to that perfect shape. And the Buddha is saying, repeatedly restraining you, I shall speak to you, Ananda, meaning I will not treat you repeatedly restraining you like the potter would do. I'm going to speak to you. I'm going to teach you. And it's up to you to restrain your own mind.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, we have some questions here coming in online. Let's see, I need to take this mic off. See here, Chris is asking, Teacher David, is it possible that Gautama Buddha also meant that he would not use physical force as a potter uses his physical hands to restrain or guide Ananda, and would instead restrain him and guide him by speaking to him? So a teacher's role is not to restrain their students physically or mentally. That's not our role. Our role is to share wisdom with you and help you cultivate that wisdom. And part of that wisdom is understanding these natural laws. That's what it is that you're looking to awaken to. When we talk about awakening to enlightenment, it's about cultivating wisdom. So now you understand this natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result, and you can see the wise decisions that's leading to your wholesome results or wholesome karma, and you can see the unwise decisions that's leading to your unwholesome results or your unwholesome karma. And now, whether you're with your teacher or not, you can make those wise decisions, because your teacher is not permanent in your life. You're going to be with your teacher for a certain period of time, but then you're going to be out there on your own without your teacher. And if it was only the teacher that understood this wisdom and they were constantly restraining you, you're not actually gaining wisdom in that situation. So that way, when you're out there on your own, you're still making unwise decisions, and it's going to keep producing unwholesome results for you. So that's why a teacher's role isn't to physically restrain their student or to mentally restrain them or otherwise, but instead our role is to help you cultivate wisdom, and we're pointing in the direction of that wisdom. That's the treasure. We're pointing to that treasure, and now it's up to you to pick up that treasure. It's up to you to see like, yeah, there is ego there. I do need to work on that. Or, oh yeah, I am speaking in unwise ways. Let me improve that. And that's where the Buddhist teachings are going to help you to see those things and learn them from the words of the Buddha. But then one of the reasons why a student needs a teacher in their life is because the unenlightened mind doesn't see all the problems that you're encountering. If you had the wisdom to know you had ego and know in what situations you had ego, you wouldn't have that ego anymore. So you need someone who's wiser and understands the teachings more, that can point out to you like, hey, here's some treasure here and here's some treasure there. And then slowly but surely you can start seeing these things and then start making wise decisions to eradicate these pollutions out of the mind. And that's where you'll see the condition of your mind and your life gradually improving. Okay. Let me check Facebook and YouTube here. Oops, that was Zoom. Okay. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 2? Chapter 2. Claire? Yeah, go ahead.
Rare that one obtains the human state. Monks, suppose that this great earth had become one mass of water, and a man would throw a ring with a single hole upon it. An easterly wind would drive it westward. A westerly wind would drive it eastward. A northerly wind would drive it southward. A southerly wind would drive it northward. There was a blind turtle who would come to the surface once every 100 years. What do you think, monks? Would that blind turtle, coming to the surface once every 100 years, insert its neck into that ring with a single hole? It would be rare, Venerable Sir, that blind turtle coming to the surface once every 100 years would insert its neck into that ring with a single hole. So too, monks, it is rare that one obtains the human state, rare that a Tathagata, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, arises in the world. Rare that the teachings and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shines in the world. You have obtained that human state, monks, a Tathagata, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one, has arisen in the world. The teachings and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shines in the world. Therefore, monks, an effort should be made to understand this is discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand this is the cause of discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand this is the elimination of discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand this is the way leading to the elimination of discontentedness.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. This is a really interesting simile that the Buddha is sharing here that's helping you to understand how rare it is to come into this world as a human being. So he's using this analogy of the world being completely flooded, and there's a blind turtle at the bottom of the sea, and there's this single ring that's floating on the surface of the earth, the surface of the water, and it's being blown all around by the wind. And now this blind turtle comes up once every 100 years for a breath. And he asked his students, how likely do you think it is that this turtle is going to insert its neck into this ring? And of course, it's extremely rare that that's going to happen. And he says, yeah, so too, it's very rare that you're going to obtain this human state. This is how rare it is for you to come into the world as a human, because coming into the world as a human, you now have the ability to train your mind and actually get to enlightenment. Where in the lower realms of hell, animal realm, and afflicted spirits, you don't have the ability to train your mind to actually get to enlightenment there. You need to get into a human existence. And then there's a heavenly realm as well that individuals can get to enlightenment from there, but they oftentimes are complacent and they don't actually train their mind to get to enlightenment. So the human realm is the ideal existence. In these 5 realms, they're not permanent. You're going to be moving in and out of these realms, and an individual has been doing that, but by the time you get to the human realm, you have this opportunity to be able to get to enlightenment. And if you live during the lifetime of a Buddha, this is the ideal time to be able to get to enlightenment, when the wisdom is really strong and vibrant and shining in the world. And that's what a Tathagata is. The Buddha is saying that it's very rare, not only that one obtains this human state, but it's very rare that a Tathagata, a perfectly enlightened one, arises in the world. That's what a Buddha is. The word Tathagata means the one who's discovered the truth, or the one who shares the truth. And he's referring to himself here, that not only is it rare that you've gotten into the human state, not only is it rare that a Buddha has arisen in the world, it's also very rare that the teachings of a Tathagata are shining in the world. So with these 3 things, it's the ideal opportunity to get to enlightenment. And he's making his students aware of that. And then he says, okay, you've obtained this, right? You've obtained this human state. You're living during the lifetime of a Buddha, and the teachings of the Buddha are shining in the world. Therefore, he's pointing them to his very first teaching, which is the Four Noble Truths. This is where you understand what is discontentedness, the cause of it, the elimination of it, and the path forward. This is one of the problems that the Buddha discovered, is the mind's going up and down and up and down. You experience happiness and you get so excited or elated, but then it's only a matter of time before you become sad or frustrated or angry or irritated or some other discontent feeling. And there's a certain cause that's causing this. What's causing this is not the outside world. With the lack of wisdom, you might think that your anger and frustration, you being annoyed, is being caused by other people, but this isn't actually true. This is due to the lack of wisdom in the mind. What's causing your mind to be angry and sad and frustrated and having fear and guilt and shame and stress and anxiety and all these things, this is the mind having craving, desire, attachment. The mind is longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get what you want, you get happy, you get excited, you get elated, because the mind has this longing, yearning for something. But if you don't get what you want, then you get painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And you can look at your own life and independently verify what I'm sharing with you to be true. You can look at a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or agitated. Look at that situation and you'll be able to see that there was something your mind wanted. You were expecting something. You were longing, yearning for this thing. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But since you didn't get it, you got angry or sad or frustrated. And you might have been blaming other people for this anger and this sadness. You might even be pushing people away out of your life, thinking that this is going to solve the problem. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile through your intention, speech, and actions towards these people. Or you might be putting your expectations on people and trying to control people and getting them to do things your way. And this isn't going to work. You're not going to be able to live harmoniously with all beings this way, because you'll just keep pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile, and putting your expectations on people. And people are going to choose to leave out of your life when you're being bitter and harsh and hostile, or you're putting your expectations on them. So what the Buddha teaches you in his very first teaching, which he's pointing to here, he's not actually reciting that teaching, he's just pointing to it, is that in his first teaching of the Four Noble Truths, he helps you to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these discontent feelings. Because if you keep going around the world thinking that other people are causing you to be angry, you'll never solve your anger. You'll continue to be angry the rest of your life, or sad or frustrated. And you might think that as a human being that this is normal, to be angry and sad and frustrated and feel guilt and shame and fear and all these other emotions, but you can actually eliminate these from the mind. You don't have to walk around life experiencing all these discontent feelings. You can gradually train your mind to actually eliminate these, but you wouldn't be able to eliminate them if you didn't know what was causing them. So that's why the very first teaching of the Buddha, in 4 simple statements, he explains what is the problem, which is discontentedness, conditioned feelings. He explains the cause of that problem being craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection. If you get what you want, you're happy. If you don't get what you want, you get sad. So if your bank account balance is here, you're really happy. But then when it goes down, you might feel sad. Or if it's sunny outside, you might be happy. But then when it's raining outside, you'll be sad or frustrated. Or if your mom and dad do this, you'll be happy. But if they do this, you'll be angry or sad or frustrated. The mind's not getting what it wants, so it keeps experiencing these conditioned feelings. That's the cause of your discontentedness, the craving, desire, attachment. The third noble truth explains the elimination of your discontentedness is possible through eliminating your craving, desire, attachment. And then in the fourth noble truth, the Buddha gives you the complete perfect plan of what it would take to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, which is the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is your core central teaching that you learn and you practice in order to gradually train the mind to get to enlightenment. So that's what the Buddha is describing here, through making an effort to understand this. And I walk students through in the foundational classes to understand the Four Noble Truths in a way that you can learn it, you can reflect on it to independently verify it, and you can practice it and train your mind, and you can start seeing how your mind is causing these feelings so that then you can eliminate them. So let me know what questions you guys have here. I see Roxanne has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so the Buddha is saying that it's rare that one obtains the human form. But right now there's 3 billion of us. So is that because few people are obtaining enlightenment so that humans in existence are continuing